All right, everyone, thanks for joining us again. We're here to talk about the Small Business Emergency Grant Program Phase 4, and we are going to reopen that program for those of you that may have missed the deadline. A couple of things to remember. Pre-registration will be open starting Wednesday, May 26th at 9 a.m. and will close Wednesday, June 30th at 5 p.m. That's a 5-week window for you to get your pre-registration in and submitted. So take your time when you're doing it. You've got the time, and as long as you don't submit it, you have the ability to alter it. Once you submit it, you cannot go back in and alter your pre-registration. So take your time, make sure you're entering things correctly and that you have all of your information handy. Once you have submitted your pre-registration, you'll come back again in July to complete the full application. And those opening windows are going to be for restaurants, childcare providers, and small businesses. Small businesses have more than 5 full-time equivalent W-2 employees. You'll come back in on July 7th, which is a Wednesday at 9 a.m. If you are a micro business with 5 or fewer full-time equivalent W-2 employees, you'll come back in on July 8th, which is Thursday at 9 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The application is available at the business.nj.gov/COVID site. There will be a link to it there, or you can always go to programs.njeda.com. In just a minute, I'm going to turn this slideshow presentation over to Bruce Solella, our Chief Compliance and Operations Officer, and he's going to walk you through how to register, how to reset your password, and then the full pre-registration process page by page. So again, Wednesday, May 26th at 9 a.m. through Wednesday, June 30th at 5 p.m. for pre-registration. Again, you can alter your pre-registration as long as you have not submitted. Once you have submitted, you cannot alter that pre-registration, so take your time. And at this point, Bruce, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. And thank you everyone for joining us for this webinar to kind of help you go through the process of that pre-registration. So I'm going to share my screen. Patience, you let me know when it is up, if you see it.
I see it.
Excellent. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the process, as Patience said, to register on the portal. Don't bother me, sorry about that, I got the drop down there. We're going to go through the process of registering for the first time on the portal, changing your password if you forget your password on the portal, and then just kind of walking through the steps of the questions on the pre-registration. Please, as Patience said, make sure you fill everything out properly. Make sure you disclose all of your duplication of benefits, which we will talk about. And all that is the other federal money you may have received as a result of COVID. But we'll walk through it as we go. But I just wanted to make sure you take your time. You have plenty of time to do this, as we are now approving our phase 4 first set of applications. You know, there's some things that we're seeing that I'm going to call out just to make sure that you don't run into any problems or any issues when you fill out your registration. All right, so with that, as Patience said, you can go to the business.gov COVID website that she had up on the screen. What's going to happen is it's going to take you to our NJEDA Application Center. Within here, within this Application Center, it's going to take you right here to this page, and you're going to see the various options. The one thing you don't see right now, because we are in the live site, is the pre-registration link. And the reason being is that, you know, it's not going to go live until the 26th of May. So while we're in the live environment, I just want you to be aware that you will see this come the 26th. There'll be a button here that says Phase 4 grant. All right, so in any regards, let's just go to sign in, because this is what we're going to do for the first time. When we're in the sign in page, right here, we're going to have to register. Now, if you've already applied for a Phase 3 grant or a Phase 2 grant, you may not have to register, and you can just sign in with your username and password. If you know your username and you know your password, that's great. You may not know your username, or you may not know your password. If that's the case, just click on Forgot Password and Username. Within here, when you're in here, it'll give you the password reset to the email address, and within there, you're going to get a link. I'm going to go through this with you, but It's really that simple. Just if you forget your username or password, click that, type in your email address. If you get an email, then you've registered. If you haven't, then you can go through the process of registering. All right, but let's do this for those that haven't registered before, or they're pretty sure that you haven't registered before. So click on this registered button and type in your email that you want to register with. For the purposes here, this is just going to be a no reply Gmail account that I created. I'm going to make my username the same exact username as my email. You don't have to. It doesn't need to be your email. If you have a username that you remember, please use that. I ask, just write down your username and password. You're going to need it for pre-registration. You're going to need it for the full application. And then I know you're going to want to know the status of your application, and you can log back into the portal and you can see live updates of where your application is along the process. All right, so email, username, password. I'm going to create a password. The password has to have at least one uppercase, one lowercase, one number, or special character. So there's 4 options. You have special character, upper, lowercase, and number. You need 3 out of 4 of those. Okay, so now I'm going to register here. As I register here, it's just going to ask me for my first name. So we're going to call this test account. And then the email address and my phone number. And again, I'm just putting in information here. Obviously, this isn't real information. This is purely test information. I'm going to click update here. And as I do this, you're going to see this button here that says your email requires confirmation, confirm email. So I'm going to confirm my email. All right, and now it told me it's been sent to the email link. I already have that up here. I'm going to wait for the email to arrive in my inbox as it arrives. The one thing I do want to tell you as I'm waiting to do this here, and you're going to see this on our website when you come, it's going to tell you, and let's might as well register here and make sure I got the email. Okay, here's confirm your account. You'll see that it went into my email. Your account requires confirmation. Please click the following link to complete the registration. I can complete registration by clicking here, or I can I can copy this whole link and paste it into my web browser this way. I can go like this, right click on my mouse and go copy link, or I'm just gonna, for the purposes of this, just click the complete registration. When I come in here, your email has been confirmed successfully. You'll be redirected to the home page within a couple of seconds. You also can click the home button. What I wanted to show you before, and you're gonna see this in red, we're asking that you do not use Internet Explorer. You can use Edge, which is what I'm using currently. You can use Google Chrome, which I'm going to switch to in a second. But we ask that you do not use Internet Explorer. As Internet Explorer is now aging out with the new Edge system, all the functionality of our application isn't going to work for you. And we don't want you to have any issues or any problems. So we really would like you to not use Internet Explorer as your browser. Okay, so now as a test account, it now has logged me in because it's confirmed that it is me. What I want to do now is I want to pretend that I'm coming in here for the first time, or I had a phase 2 or phase 3, and I'm trying to sign in again. So again, you'll see it directed me to the home page. I went to sign in the upper right-hand corner. When I go into the sign in, again, you're going to see sign in, you're going to see register, you're going to see redeem invitation. For the purposes here, I'm going to go through the sign in, and I'm going to say, you know what? I forgot my password already, right? So I'm going to come in here, I'm going to type in this, which was what my username was, and now I'm going to type in the wrong password. I'm just going to type in a random password. I'm going to click sign in, and it's going to tell me invalid sign in attempt. Darn it, I already forgot my password. Let me try to figure out what it is. So I'm going to use the forgot password username link. I go here. I'm going to type in my email address that I used to register, which is this phase 4 no reply 2 at Gmail. Please do not email that account. It obviously is a no reply and only for test purposes only. I'm going to hit send to get a password reset. Okay, so please check your email to reset your password. I'm going to come in here. I'm going to wait for it to be delivered. This again was the confirming of my account, so I'm going to get rid of this just so there's no confusion. And here it is. Forgot username and password reset. So I click on this here. Here it's going to tell me what my username is, right? So my username is EDA phase 4 no reply @gmail.com. If you remember, that's what I used when I typed in the information. And here's the password reset here. So I'm going to reset my password. What's my new password? So I'm going to type in a new password. My password's been reset, and now I'm going to sign in.
So I want to add a little note of advice for folks that maybe are resetting their password because they think they forgot that. When you get the email, as Bruce pointed out, it does show you what your username is. Be careful when you're entering your username that your computer isn't automatically populating a username that isn't assigned to this program. So I talked to several people who their computer is populating the program, the username, and they're assuming that's the correct one. If you do the reset password, forgot username, you'll see exactly what that username is. Copy and paste it from your email and put it in there as your username. Don't go with whatever is pre-populated if you're having trouble getting back in.
Excellent point. All right, so now I am here and I have the username, and now I have my new password, and I'm going to sign in. And again, it's telling me here, it's taking me to the home page. You will see when we go to the test environment, what I'm going to say for the button that's going to appear here. But there will be a button that says COVID phase 4 grant. You're going to see it up here as well. When you click on my applications, you'll see COVID phase 4 grant application. Within there is where you're going to have the pre-registration. What I'm going to do now, as we are in the live environment, because I wanted to show you in the live environment how to register, as well as how to get your username or password, I'm going to switch over to our test environment, because there we can go through the pre-registration, because as of the filming of this webinar, we obviously are not live with the second phase of our pre-registration for those that hadn't pre-registered previously. So with that, I'm going to switch over to my Chrome browser. And what I'm going to do here is you will see now when I click that home button, this is exactly how it's going to look when you come into the live environment. But right now I'm just in test, and you can see that here because I'm in this test site. So in any regards, you're going to see this COVID phase 4 grant application. You can click on that button, or as I did on the test environment, you can click on my applications and go to the COVID phase 4 grant. Here, I'm going to go to COVID phase 4 grant. All right, within here, you're going to see a bunch of my test applications. That's okay. You might have multiple businesses that maybe some you've submitted or some you haven't submitted. In any regards, you're going to see whatever you've submitted under this username and password are going to potentially appear here. If you've not had any pre-registration that you've submitted for phase 4, this will be blank for you. For me, because I'm in the test environment, it's showing multiple applications. That's okay. Yours might not show any. All right, so what I'm going to want to do is start my pre-registration. I'm going to click on the Start My Pre-Registration button, and it's going to ask me for my employee identification number. Reminder, this pre-registration is for anybody that did not submit a pre-registration previously in the phase 4 grant program. So when I type in my employee identification number, if I've already submitted a pre-registration, I am going to get a warning that I've already submitted. So let's, for the purposes of this, go through that exercise. I'm going to click next with 00000. This form could not be submitted for the following reason. You've already submitted an application for the phase 4 grant program. You're going to receive this error message. If you've already done that, you're not going to be able to submit another pre-registration. Okay, it's not going to allow you to move forward. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my EIN to another random EIN and just make sure that, again, right, so now it's processing. I have an EIN that has not been submitted as a pre-registration already. If you get that error message, that means you've already submitted a pre-registration. If that has happened to you when you are in the My Applications, you should see it there. If you don't, contact customer care and they will be able to help you. but please, this pre-registration is only for those that had not already submitted a phase 4 pre-registration. All right, so now I'm just going to fill in first name. Who am I? Right? For this purpose, I'm going to do test account, and my title is going to be testing. My phone number, right? This is all information you should have readily available for you. If you have a website, great, please put it in. If not, that's okay. Are you an authorized signer? You need to be an authorized signer for the business entity. If you are not, please have whoever that authorized signer is fill out this application. If you are, then you can answer yes and move forward through the process. And we are going to call this test account, and we'll call it 525. And if you have a doing business name as, that's great as well. And then I'm going to click next with this contact information. This is all basic information that you should have relatively simple and relatively available. All right, again, what is the primary business address, physical address for your location? All right, we're going to just do some test information. When you come into the zip code, you're going to see that the box is grayed out and you're not able to type any numbers in. That's okay. Hit this magnifying glass. It's just a lookup tool for you, right? And we're going to put in our Trenton zip code, and we're going to click select. It'll be, if you have the zip code, that's great. It'll put it in there for you. Let me just go through this one more time for you, because you can do it a couple of ways. If you know your zip code, that's perfect. You could also search by city. All you do is type in the information. You can hit enter, or you could hit the little search bar there. The checkbox will be checked. You would hit select, and then it will populate in here for you. The next thing you'll see is that the city is grayed out. That's okay as well. You need to go into the lookup tool again, and it'll give you the options of your city based on the zip code that you had previously provided. So here there's only one option, Trenton City. So I'm going to select that. There might be multiple options. Choose which town is the correct for your business. All right, so we have Trenton City. The state's already populated. The county's already populated. Is this a commercial location? Yes or no? There's no requirement for the commercial. You are also eligible if you're home-based. This is for informational purposes, but we just need to know if it's a commercial or if it's home-based. Again, once I have all this information, I'm going to click next. And as I said, I'm in the test environment. So if something doesn't look 100% exactly the same, it's because I am in test. But 99% of what you're looking at right here is exactly what it's going to look like when you go into the live environment. So we're going to have the date that the business was established, and operational. The requirement for this program was in February of 2020, you needed to be established and operational. For the purposes here, I'm just going to put 1/1/1990. I could also use the little calendar icon to select the date as well. Am I still operational today? Yes or no? If you're not, you need to tell us that if you are not, but you plan on reopening, that is okay. We'll ask you additional questions. If you've closed up shop and do not plan to reopen, then this program is helping those businesses that are trying to either reopen or are still in operation today. And then we're going to ask for the ownership structure. And there's multiple selections that you can choose from. Just choose the one that is that best represents your business, whether you're a sole prop or partnership or single member LLC. All right, so now you'll see that the owners, if I wanted to add an owner of this business, I would go here and add who the owners are of the business. As you'll see, as this comes up, it's just going to ask for the first name, right? So I'm just going to do test account as the owner. And that's all I need is the first and last name. We're not going to ask for percentage of ownership, just who the owners are. Once that loads in here, we now have the employee identification number. This is carried over from the first screen that you typed in, and it's going to ask for you to certify that your business is properly and fully registered within the state. If we already have your EIN in the system and we know that you are properly registered, you may not see this question. But for the purposes here, this EIN was not recognized by our system. So we're just asking you to confirm that you are properly and fully registered within the state. You can validate if you are properly registered by going to this link that's directly under this question here. When you go to this link, it's going to take you to the business registration certificate portal here. to see if you are properly registered, what you want to do is you want to type in your taxpayer ID as well as the first 4 letters of your business name. When you do this here and you add the 3 zeros here at the end, like it tells you to, and you type in your business name here, the first 4 characters, if you're properly registered, there's going to be a business registration certificate that's going to pop up, which is going to mean that you've done all the steps that you need to in the registration process, which is great, which is what we're looking for. If not, you're going to get a telephone number to contact, right? So what we would ask is that you make sure that you are properly registered so that it doesn't delay any assistance that we may be able to provide you. All right, so once I've done that, I said yes.
Let me jump in real quick. I'm going to
Sure.
throw in another word of advice. For those of you that maybe don't show up, your business registration certificate doesn't show up, and you possibly aren't fully and properly registered, there is a walkthrough webinar from our partners over at the Division of Revenue and Enterprise Services on the COVID, the business.nj.gov/COVID site, showing you just how to get that done.
Yeah, and it is a great walkthrough. So I would highly recommend people to go there. If you are seeing this question here and you went to this website and you're not seeing your information, let's start that process now. I don't want you to be delayed in getting any funding because we need to wait for your business registration to get filed properly. And in many instances, some entities think they've gone through all the steps and maybe they just missed one minor piece. That's okay. It could take a couple of minutes for you to make the correction. So let's just make sure that you're properly registered. All right, so moving through that part of this application here, it's going to ask if you file a Schedule C or a Schedule E. If you do, answer it accordingly, and then we're going to ask for your Social Security number. And then you can enter that information here. If you don't, that is okay. And you'll see that that question's not answered anymore. So there is some dynamic features of the application. So some of these questions will only appear depending on how you answer the question. So here I'm going to put no. Now the next question is going to say, do you file a WR-30 with the Division of Labor and Workforce Development? If you have W-2 employees, you probably do file a WR-30. If you only have 1099 employees, then you may not. This is unique to each business, so you would just need to know if you do or not. For the purposes of this, I'm going to say, yes, I do. When I answer yes, it says, do I use a professional employment organization? A professional employment organization files your WR-30 for you on your behalf. You will know if you have a professional employment organization. It is a contract that you have with another entity. This isn't a payroll company. It could be a payroll company, but in most instances, this is a separate contract that you completely have with a different entity that actually are the people that employ your workers. So here I'm going to answer no. I do not have a professional employment organization. And then it's going to ask me how many full-time employees are on my Q3 2020 or Q4 2020 WR-30 filing. The reason we're asking for the Q3 or Q4 is because when we first went live with this application, the Q1 of 2021 was not required to be submitted yet. So we're going to ask for your most recently filed, either the Q4 2020 or Q3. Please provide that information, not your Q1 2021. So for the purposes here, I'm going to say I have 5 employees. How many part-time? I don't have any part-time. I don't have any 1099 employees at all. All these things, you can have all of these. It's not going to matter. This is for informational purposes. We're just trying to understand where we should bucket and how big of an award size you should get. And all of this is going to be validated through our sister agency checks with the Department of Labor and Workforce Development as well. And then I'm going to ask, then in this application, we ask for what the 2019 annual revenue is. If you don't know it down to the penny, that's okay, right? If it's, if you are within a very good estimate of what your revenue is, that's perfectly fine. We're not asking you to be 100% precise. We want you to be close though, right? If you are $101,000 and you put $100,000 in, so be it. But if you're $1 million and you put in 10,000, well, that's a problem, right? So try to understand what your 2019 annual revenue is. For the purposes here, I'll put in $100,000. And 2020, we know some people have not filed their 2020 taxes yet. That's okay. Again, what do you anticipate your annual revenue being? even if it's to the extent of, hey, for 2020, I had $10,000 a month of revenue, and there's 12 months and it's 120,000. Look, when you actually do file your returns and it's 128,000, that's okay, right? We understand that there might be some variances here or there. We're just trying to get an accurate picture of how your business did. So for the purposes here, I'm going to say, hey, for 2020, my revenue was $90,000. All right, once I enter all this information, I'm going to click next. Really, the one thing I would say here is answer this truthfully, but don't overthink this, right? It's what your annual revenue is. Understand, how much sales did I have for 2020? Oh, it was $100,000. Great, then that's your number. If it turns out to be $101,962.38, that's okay. We just want you to be, you can be as precise as you possibly can be, but don't overthink that, it's a huge issue there. All right, so the next thing is the NAICS code. The NAICS code, this sometimes confuses people. This is really going to establish whether you're a childcare or a restaurant, but this is something that you associate your business with. Again, similar to how the zip code was, this is a grayed out box. We're going to go to, again, hit this little lookup key here. And some people may know their NAICS code, and you might be able to type in the digits here and, it'll pop up perfectly. Some people may not know their NAICS code, but they know that they are a restaurant, or they know that I'm a child care. I deal with children, right? So I type in child, and it gives me the various child options that I might have, right? So child and youth services, child daycare, all of these pieces are in here. Or maybe, you know what, I do construction. So let me just type in construction, right? And this gives me all the various type of construction companies based on the, the description of the company, right? So for the purposes here, I'm going to say I'm construction, sand, and gravel mining. The box is checked. I'm going to click select, and it's going to populate right here the NAICS code. All right, so that's all that I needed for the NAICS code portion. Now, here it's going to ask in the previous 8 quarters, which quarter did your business have the highest employment? So if you remember in the previous question, we asked in Q3 of 2020 or Q4 of 2020, that question is wondering and is trying to establish whether you qualify for the program. What we mean by qualify for the program, it's 50 full-time equivalent employees or less. So that's what we are trying to show in that question of, all right, well, you have less than 50, great. Here, we understand that you may have had to reduce your staff as a result of social distancing or whatever it may be. We don't want to penalize you for your employment today. We want to make sure we're maximizing your reward. So we're asking you in the last 8 quarters, from Q1 of 2019 through Q4 of 2020, what was your highest employment total, right? So I'm going to say, guess what? In Q1 of 2019, my business was really doing well. Great. And in that quarter, did I file a WR-30? I absolutely did, yes. And again, the WR-30, if you have W-2 employees, you probably have filed a WR-30. All right, and now it's going to say, well, how many employees did I have? Well, I had 20. Great, you had 20 employees at that point. Perfect. Now it's going to ask me, which phase 4 program best describes my business? Now, one thing I want to go back to this question here is if you don't know what your equivalent employees are, your full-time W-2 equivalent employees are, we have a link right here that you can go to and enter in all of your employment information, and that'll help you calculate what number you should put in here. When you go to this link, it's just our grant size estimator. And all you really need to do, you'll see, you don't even need to put the employer name in. You just need to type in the wages for all of your various employers as listed on your WR-30 with the state of New Jersey. So you would enter all that information here, and right here, it'll tell you what your full-time equivalents are. All right, so for this purpose, let's just assume that I have 20 because I've gone through here and I already know how many my full-time equivalents are. Great, so I put 20 in there. And now it's gonna ask me which program best describes me. So as Patience led off with, she said that there are different times when you're going to come in for your full application. This is what we're trying to get to right here so we can understand which of your businesses, when you're going to come in to apply. So if you're a restaurant, your NAICS code must start with 722. So you'll see here, I'm a construction, sand, and gravel company, so I don't start with that 722. A micro business is going to have 5 or less full-time equivalent W-2 employees. Well, I just put in here that I have 20, so it wouldn't be a micro business. A small business has more than 5 full-time equivalent W-2 employees. All right, well, I'm thinking that I'm probably going to be a small business because I have more than 5 equivalent employees. Now I have one more choice, which is this childcare, and the NAICS code must start with this 62, or actually must be 624410. So if I'm a childcare provider, that's what my NAICS code would be. As you can see here, that's not my NAICS code. So the one that best describes me is this small business, because I don't have this NAICS code. I don't begin with this NAICS code. I have more than 5, so I must be a small business. So I'm going to identify as a small business. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to click next. All right, so now I click next, and now it comes to my religious affiliation. If you are an organization that has a religious affiliation, you should answer this question as yes. If you are not, then you can answer no. If you do answer yes, you're going to get a series of additional questions you need to answer. Just answer them truthfully, and it just helps us go down the decision path of your application, because there's just some additional information that we need. But as you can see, for the examples of this test, I'm going to put no and click next. Similarly, we're going to ask, is your business engaged in lobbying or for political purposes? Again, answer this truthfully. If it's yes, please do so. If it's no, then answer it accordingly as well. If you do answer yes, there'll be additional information that we'll ask you for in the approval process. If you answer no because you are not, then you can click next as well. In both instances, you can advance in the application. We just need you to answer this truthfully again. All right, so now it's going to ask me, have I filed tax returns within the state? And you're going to check all that apply. So I'm going to say I did 2018, I did 2019. I haven't done 2020 yet, that's okay. So I'm just going to leave that one blank. So I've done 2018, I've done 2019. I'm on extension still for 2020. Just check what's applicable for you. Okay, this next part, COVID-19 assistance, duplication of benefit. This is really, really important. What we are asking for here, have you received any other assistance as a result of COVID? So have you received any other NJEDA grant? Have you received a PPP loan? Have you received an economic disaster loan from the Small Business Association, the federal program? Have you received an economic injury disaster grant? Did you apply for our sustain and serve and get approved? Did you apply to the NJEDA's personal protective equipment access program? In any of these, if you have applied, we need to know. We are cross-referencing not only the EDA's programs, but also the Small Business Administration's programs, as well as other state and local municipalities. So if you are answering this question, please take your time, think back of all the programs, make sure you put in the correct amount, because if you don't, this is going to delay the approval process when you go and try to get approved and submit your full application. We are going to be reaching back out to you, and it's just going to delay the process for you. So here I'm going to answer yes, I have received other other program assistance. I'm going to say that I received the Small Business Association Paycheck Protection Program. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to say that I've been approved. I've been approved for $10,000. I was approved in, now here again is another example. If you are off by a day, that is okay. If you think, I think it was October 5th, it might've been the 7th, that's okay. The most important thing is that you're disclosing it and that we have it. And then what are the purposes of why I received this funds? And for this, I'm going to say payroll. Please notice that there's different phases here. PPP opened up 2 phases. There's a phase 1 and a phase 2. You'll see the small business assistance for the EDA, we had phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Please check the correct one. Again, we're matching this up with our sister agencies as well as the federal government. And it just makes it easier when we make that match that, yep, I received the phase 1 PPP, or I received the phase 2. Take your time, go back to your records, make sure, right? Don't click submit if you're not ready to click submit. And just make sure you get this question right. Trust me, it might take you an extra 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes to do this, but it could save you days or weeks in the approval process, because we're going to have to outreach to you, ask you additional questions and all of those things. So if you cannot tell, I am pleading with you to make sure that you get this screen right, because it really is important. All right, so I've answered these questions here. I click next.
Something
All right.
else to remember, just as you're going through, you can leave this application where it is and come back to it as long as you haven't submitted. So if you get to that duplication of benefits page and you're not sure what you're doing, you can leave the application and come back as long as you haven't hit submit. You would just sign back in again, click on the ID that has then been created for your pre-registration and go back into that same pre-registration. Again, you'll want to go back into that same pre-registration. You won't start over. It'll bring you back and save all of the information after each time you hit next.
And that's a really good point. Let me show that actually, patients, so you can see what it looks like. So let's just say I wanted to leave right here because I need to figure out how I'm going to answer this question, or I don't have all the information, or I have a pot of boiling water on the stove and I need to make sure I go get it before my pasta burns. Right? So you have to leave the application. That's okay, as patients just said, right? So let's just assume you've left the application. Now you just sign back in, right? You don't have to start everything over all over again, as patients said. It'll show up here on your list. Now, for the purposes of me, I have a lot of test applications here, but I'm going to find, right, here's my test account 525, right? And I can see that it's in process, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this MOLA ID, or application ID, as you see it here, right? And I'm going to click on that. It's going to take me, right? I click on it. It's going to show me my summary, which is great. And then I'm going to click next. And when I click next, it's going to take me through the process, right, of all of the application steps, right? So it's already filled out for me. So I've got all this information in here, and I can just go through and see if I need to update anything, or if it's already filled out for me. Okay, all this looks great. Going through the process. And I'm going to get to the page where, where I left off. And in the live environment, what you may also see is that it may take you directly to the page that you left off on. In the test environment, it allows us to go through the process, and that's okay too, right? I can also go back by hitting the previous button. And when I hit the previous button, it takes me back to the page that I was at before as well. So if you realize, whoops, I made a mistake, you can also hit the previous button to get back there and make any corrections. But you'll see here, I stopped right here, if you remember. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to say, I do not wish to identify. This is informational purposes only. So you can choose, whichever is applicable to you. All right, and now it's going to ask us some business details. And these are just a series of questions that you'll see here. This one, if I answer yes to a question, it's going to give me a warning that just says you may not be eligible if you are gambling. Whoops, I made a mistake. What it's going to allow me to do is then change my answer to yes or no. Okay, what it's not going to allow you to do, and this sometimes confuses people, I have yes up here. I've now answered no to the second question, but the first question, I can't revise. It doesn't allow me to revise my initial answer. That's okay. You have your revised answer as no. This is just frozen here as yes, because that's how you originally answered. It's just locked. That's okay. You've revised it to a no. It's completely fine. You've now answered this question as a no. All right, so for all the rest of these, is it adult activity? No. Going out of business or some bankruptcy sales? No. Am I a transient merchant? No. Outdoor storage? No. A nuisance? No. Illegal purposes, right? Answer these how they are applicable to your business. All right, now the legal questionnaire. Again, we need you to answer these truthfully. If you do answer yes to this, you'll see that you're going to have a box that allows you to type in an explanation as to what happened. If you answer no, you'll see that you don't have that option. So I'm just going to put test account because I answered yes to this one. Here, you want to provide as much detail as you can. It just helps when we're reviewing the application. If you can provide, something happened when I was younger or whatever it might be. Whatever the explanation is helpful when it's being reviewed. And you'll see here that it has a red asterisk. You're actually not going to be able to proceed if you don't fill out an answer. If you answer yes, it's required that you provide the details. All right, so for the purposes of this test application, I answered yes to that, no to the rest. All right, now there's a Privacy Act statement release waiver. So this waiver here is just you're consenting that we can obtain information from our sister agencies, specifically the Division of Taxation, to validate your data and information. All right, and then I check that box as you saw there, and it takes me to the electronic signature. And here I'm just checking that I've been bound to electronic signature. I'm an authorized signer for the business. I'm looking at my EIN. I'm confirming that's correct. If it's not, please go back and correct your EIN. You have the opportunity to correct it. It is really important. Again, all of the checks that we're going to run on your business are going to be, or most of the checks that we're going to run on your business are going to be based on the EIN. So if that's not correct, it's going to delay the approval process. And again, you're going to type in your name here. And then it's just going to ask you to type in the characters here just to make sure you're not a robot or trying to do multiple applications. All right, so I type in all that information. I click next. And at this point, my pre-registration has been submitted. As Patience said earlier, once you submit your pre-registration, you cannot edit it. So please, please, please make sure you have it right. Make sure all of that information is on there, and you have all of that, you have everything correct, right? Then it's going to go to what you'll see is, you'll then see that you have submitted you'll see pre-registration submitted. Here it just says submitted. You'll see pre-registration submitted in your application list once it's been your pre-registration submitted. And then the times that Patience referenced earlier, July 7th for those restaurants, for the childcare, for the micro, that's when you could come in for your full application. And then, excuse me, it was small business, it was childcare, and it was restaurants on July 7th. On July 8th are the micros. And you'll get a follow-up email about all of that. But this is where you would come back in once you've done that as well. All right,
also,
so
I'm going to throw in there, it's also not a bad idea to do a screenshot of that confirmation page, just in case your email gets deleted. You've got the screenshot of it that you can save to your computer that has your application ID on there that starts with MOLA. And that's how you'll identify your pre-registration and your application all the way through the process.
Very good point. And this really is going to be the number. This is your application number, right? So this is forever going to be associated with your account. So with that, I will turn it back over to Patience. Patience, was there anything else that as I walked through that you think I missed or might be helpful?
Not that I think that you missed. I want to point out that you're not required to have W-2 employees in order to qualify for the grant. So that micro business designation is for 5 or fewer. That includes 0. So if you've got 0 employees, that's absolutely fine. That does not make you ineligible for the grant. Your 1099 employees, if you don't have W-2 employees, your 1099 employees do not identify the grant size for you. They're just for our information to understand the makeup of your business. And then Just to reiterate, take your time. The pre-registration process this time is going to be open for 5 full weeks. Don't submit it unless you know it's all right. Double check all of the information that you put in there, everything from your business name to your DBA. If you put that in there, you're going to have the time to do this. So, so use it and use it wisely. Make sure that everything's correct. As Bruce stated on a few instances throughout this webinar, any mistakes within the application could potentially cause a review needing to be done or a declination, and that just lengthens the amount of time before you can get to an approval. And we want you to get approved right away. So enter your information correctly. Call our customer care call line at 844-965-1125 if you've got questions as you're going through that. We're open from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. Anyone on the call center can help you, and we're happy to do that. Call us if you're having trouble getting into your application. Keep in mind, if you do the forgot password link, that is going to tell you what your username is. A lot of times that's the reason why you get an invalid sign-in attempt. So watch the webinar a couple of times if you can. You've got 5 weeks, and we want to see you get approved as quickly as possible.
Yes, the time you take now will greatly, if you do it right here, will greatly reduce the review time through the process. So it's so important that you do take your time on it. And the other piece is, again, try not to use Internet Explorer, as you're not going to get the great customer experience using Internet Explorer that you would through the other browsers. No particular browser that I am stating is better than the other, but as technology moves away from Internet Explorer, we're just asking that you use a different browser.
Also, keep in mind, if you're doing this on a phone or a tablet, it is going to look a little different. So if it's possible for you to use a desktop or a laptop, try to do that. It can be done on your phone or tablet. We just have found that the experience is better on a desktop or a laptop.
Yes.
So thanks everyone for joining us. Thanks Bruce for taking the time to walk it through, and we'll see you all back here May 26th to June 30th with your pre-registrations. Thanks.
Best of luck, everyone.